Hello, happy Easter, Easter Sunday. Beck, Sea Change from 2002. Um, this was the album after Midnight Vultures. So Midnight Vultures is 99, and then this was his next full album release in 2002. I thought it was 2003, but I just checked. It was September 2002. And it's pretty great. It's one of my favorite albums by Beck. I own a lot of Beck's albums, almost his whole discography, at least album releases. He's got a lot of kind of EPs and bits and pieces all over the place, but the major album releases I own most of. This is described. It's typical. Beck has kind of got a few different settings, but I think his default setting and the original music he came out as is kind of folk rock, folk based. And then when he went to like Mellow Gold and certainly Odelay, he kind of mixed and matched a whole lot of genres together, and you could still hear the folk coming through in a lot of the songs in those albums, but he was putting like elements of hip hop and sampling and more harder rock and pop and kind of soul and all sorts of bits and pieces, country. But this album is pretty much within the folk rock world, with small elements of bits and pieces sometimes making their ways into songs. Like that first song, Golden Age, you can hear almost a little bit of country in that, the guitar. But he wrote this album after he broke up with his longtime girlfriend, Lee Lemon. So they were in together for 9 years, and they were engaged to be married, and she cheated on him while he was away on tour for the Midnight Vultures album. And so he was pretty heartbroken, as you would be. And I've seen this written, this description. It says that it's a collection of songs of heartbreak and desolation, solitude and loneliness. For the album, much of Beck's trademark cryptic and ironic lyrics, which really you could hear in Midnight Vultures and Odelay, were replaced by simpler, more sincere lyrical content. He also eschewed the heavy sampling of his previous albums for live instrumentation. So, yeah, I agree with all those things. It's a lot more, yeah, they use the word sincere. A lot of those, kind of his persona in the mid late 90s was very ironic, which I guess kind of matched with the times of that kind of Generation X, the whole song Loser, and where you don't know what's sincere and what's not. There's so much sarcasm used, and his music and his lyrics. It was hard to pin down exactly what he really was saying. But this album is pretty raw in its emotional vulnerability and in the lyrics he sings and the things he's singing about. He produced, not wrote it together, but it was produced by Nigel Godrich, who he's worked with a few other times. This particular copy, so I've owned this twice. This is my second copy. Both were secondhand. I bought this probably about 2004 ish, and and I was kind of blown away by it because I was a fan of Beck in the Odelay period, especially. I went and saw him when I was about 16 or 17. He toured here for the Odelay album, and that was one of the best concerts I ever went to. It was amazing. It was such a spectacle. Um, But then with Midnight Vultures, I was a little less enthusiastic, and then I kind of went through. You do have periods of following artists more intently, and then not. And I kind of lost track a little bit of Beck for a while, and then I saw when Sea Change came out, I saw a lot of the reviews. It was getting kind of exceptional reviews, 5-star reviews, and so I put that away in the memory banks of thinking, okay. And then one day the opportunity arose where I could purchase it, and I did, and it was, yeah, like I said, I was kind of blown away by how I loved every song on the album. So I have the secondhand copy. I still have the disc of the secondhand copy in one of my folders, but I had since discarded of the case. But I found this probably about a year or two ago for $1. Thought I'd pick it up. The inside case is missing the teeth, which is always the bane of a CD collector. So many of them are missing those. You can see that some of the loose ones still. So I'll probably replace that when I can, but I should probably actually do that sooner rather than later, because what you notice is that when they have these, when they're not secure, interlocked with the teeth, they slide around a lot, even if it's just that little bit like that. And they do tend to get scratched up a bit. This one's not too bad. I can see one scratch there. That wouldn't have come from the case. That's something a bit more deep. But it's not totally. It's not a terrible condition. Most of the other Beck stuff I've got is also secondhand. I was actually going to do an entire Beck discography video, but I have so much of his stuff. It would be too unwieldy to do all the CDs together, because some of them I want to talk about more than others, like Sea Change. Apparently, there was 4 different album covers. It was the same basic, his face portrait, but there was different digital effects on them. Like I've seen one that had a picture of a kind of more blue kind of sea, like wave type stuff, and other kind of different combinations of color. I've only ever seen this one. Both copies I've owned are this one. And also, if you search on Google, this is the one that comes up. So I don't know if those other 3 were my limited edition ones that are not found so readily. I don't know, but so track listing, like the Golden Age, which starts off very kind of slow, and like I said, it's almost got a kind of country feel to it. Got a beautiful chorus. Paper Tiger is really even back a gear down. It's like very restrained. The way he's singing, the instrumentation, it's very, very low key. Then we get to kind of, there's these 4 songs in a row. Guess I'm Doing Fine, Lonesome Tears, Lost Cause, End of the Day. All in kind of share a very similar theme of direct songs of loss and heartbreak. You can tell by the titles. Guess I'm Doing Fine. It's kind of like, yeah, I'm all right. Don't worry about me. But he sounds particularly sad. Again, it's got a kind of country feel to it. Lonesome Tears, I won't cry them anymore, as he says. There's actually, I think, there's some strings in that one. There's some strings in a few of these songs. They use a cello or something. Lost Cause, talking about the relationship as a lost cause. My favorite song on the album. It's hard to pick one, but End of the Day is my favorite song. The lyric, the delivery of the lyric, just the feel of the song. Yeah, there's one particular line where he's talking about, what does he say? It's in the end of the day, I'm just saying, had to act like I didn't even care, but I did, so I got stranded standing here. Which sounds pretty simplistic now that I say it back, but it's always stuck with me, that line. Like he had to, when the breakdown, the relationship happened, he had to act like he didn't care. Maybe, when you're going through difficult times in relationships, and in your real life, you've got to kind of try to hide that when you're at work or with your friends or with your family or other people who don't really know the full extent of your relationship issues. But you do care, obviously. You care deeply, usually care too much. And that act of hiding your feelings can strand you. It can kind of hamper your recovery or your getting over process. It's healthy and good to be able to let it out and communicate your feelings, but not even necessarily communicate to other people, but at least have the freedom to be sad and not have to be on and pretending that everything's okay to people around you. That's but in the modern world, or in, not even the modern world, in life, we don't always have that. We don't always have that opportunity, do we? Or that kind of thing where that ability to be able to go to work and and be that way, and people don't really appreciate that. They want you to be acting normal. Um, it's all in your mind. Round the bend. See, the last songs kind of I've always felt like it's kind of there's kind of it's like a wave, the album. Like it kind of starts off very slow, then kind of builds up with this kind of the songs of heartbreak, the lost cause, lonesome tears. It's all in your mind. Then kind of by the time he's kind of coming, it's kind of settling back down again. Already dead. That's a pretty depressing one, to be honest. Sunday Sun, that one's a little bit more that one's got a bit more feel to it, a bit more some energy in that song. Little One, that's kind of a little bit more left field, that one as well. It's but you kind of feel like he's getting his energy back. He's getting his joie de vie, or his life force back as the album progresses. Don't know if that is the case, but that's kind of what I've always felt when I've listened to this as a whole. I was looking at the critical reception of this because in my mind, like I said, when this first came out, I remember seeing a lot of 5-star reviews and kind of album of the year claims and stuff like that. And it did get a lot of good reviews, but it also got some mixed reviews. Rolling Stone gave it 5 stars. Q magazine gave it four stars. NME only gave it 6 out of 10. Pitchfork, my opinion on Pitchfork, 6.9 out of 10. And then All Music Guide, the one that I say I always defer to because I feel that if they give something a 5-star review, it truly deserves it. And the same the other way, if they give it a 1 star, a lot of the publications just kind of sometimes default to 1 or 2 stars just because, this is terrible, but without actually backing it up with any real logical reasons. And then sometimes certain publications are too happy to give out 5-star reviews willy-nilly. Well, All Music Guide gave it a 5-star review. And like I said, I almost always agree with their reviews. Either way. And so I would agree with this. When I first heard this, I absolutely would have given it 5 stars. As I've got older, I've heard more music and I can kind of hear, Beck has been influenced by a lot of artists in a lot of different genres. And as you listen to music, through the years, you hear and you think, oh, okay, that sounds a lot like kind of the stuff Beck would have taken from. For example, there's one Nick Drake song. I can't remember what it was, but it's the strings. I thought it may be Already Dead. And it sounds like it's almost directly lifted from the Nick Drake song by Beck. But I don't mean to say that, I don't appreciate it. I still would give it a 5 stars. It is a very consistent album from start to end. Has a strong theme and just beautiful, beautiful songs throughout. So, yeah, it's not the typical Beck, because I think if you do say Beck to most people who haven't really listened to him beyond the singles, they think of Loser, Where It's At, Devil's Haircut, and then later some of the stuff he did later, what's some of those other ones? Think I'm in Love, but I'm afraid to say so. That kind of stuff. It's more fits into what we imagine him to be. But this isn't like that. This is much more of his folk stuff, which never really resonated much in the mainstream as his other stuff did. So it could be considered a bit different for people who didn't know him. But I thoroughly recommend it. It's a brilliant album. Sea Change. And that's a cool title as well, I think. Sea Change. Thank you for watching.